What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, coach of your Muntron Milotic and your local League format enthusiast. Today I have a very special guest with me who's been on the channel before for another list video that we've done, but he's here today, so I'll let him say hi.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Aaron2420.
Yeah, so Aaron and I are here today for a special video on the best Stealth Rock Pokemon, Stealth Rock users in the entire Draft League format. And Aaron's got a pretty good list. He's got a pretty good list. Now, Aaron, you have a Twitter and YouTube channel, right?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, so where can we find those? They're going to be where?
I think they're going to be in the description down below for everyone to click.
You're damn right they will be. They will be in the description below. So if you have not checked out Aaron, you should definitely go and check him out. He makes a ton of great content, and he is also a member of the GBAD League and one of the commissioners for the BBL.
Ooh, nice plug there.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Hey.
So why don't we go over the first Pokemon on your list? So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Okay, well, before I get into my list really quickly, in terms of Matt and mine's list, it seems like I seem to prefer a lot more offensive Stealth Rockers, whereas Matt prefers a lot more defensive ones, it seems like. 100%. So that definitely changes our opinions on these mons, as a lot of mine are extremely offensive, and Matt's, while they have some offensive presence, are mostly defensive. So overall, one of my favorite Stealth Rockers in format would have to be Heatran, because not only is Heatran a Steel type, and I love Steel type Stealth Rockers, it's almost something I prioritize, it's also a mon that is extremely offensive, and it even has a decent speed tier for its bulk base. 78 speed actually is really nice for outspeeding a lot of really bulky mons, while it also has enough bulk so it's not just going to die to any hits and become like a suicide lead. And the Fire Steel typing offensively, especially with Fairy now, is such a nice typing because it has really nice coverage with on top of those stabs as well, able to get around things such as bulky waters if you give it a Z move. But of course, this isn't about Z mons, it's about Stealth Rockers. But point being, it has a lot of ways around mons that would normally try and attack it head on and try and kill it before it hits the rocks. So that way then it doesn't just die, while it still also isn't just passive and getting taunted and then having to lose because you can't hit your opponent.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that you brought up taunt, because I was going to say that the fact that it has decent speed here at 77 and it gets taunt, it lets it get up rocks while stopping a lot of the bulkier Pokemon that I have on my list from getting up rocks too. So that's a really big benefit that Heatran has. But I will say the 4x weakness to ground kind of sucks, unless you're pairing with like Tapu Bulu, but still, to me, it's a big letdown.
Yeah, I'll give you that. The ground weakness, especially because ground is probably the best offensive typing, is
For sure.
a little hard. But other than that, I mean, it still does at least give you a fire immunity, so it at least isn't just dead weight in terms of defensively.
Yes, this defensive typing is really good. Its offensive stats are pretty good too. To me, it's just, if it wasn't ground typing, that's what it would be. Like, it's just because of ground typing. If it was like those 4 times weak to, I don't know, flying for some reason, then I'd be like, okay, cool. But ground is just so common, and every team has one, so yeah.
That's very fair.
Anyways, we'll move on to the next one though, and that is my number 5 slot, and that is Necrozma. So Necrozma to me is extremely diverse in what it can do. It can be a Stealth Rocker, but can also be an offensive threat, and because of that, your opponent can never really know exactly what you're going to run. They have to prepare for literally everything. And you can run Stealth Rocks on a set with Recovery and Moonlight. You also have a great defensive ability in Prism Armor, which is kind of like Filter, I believe. And because of that, it allows Necrozma to do so many things defensively from the physical and the special side. Psychic is obviously a great defensive typing, and because of that, taking hits just comes naturally to this Pokemon. As far as getting up rocks, it's really rare you're going to be taken out in one hit, so you don't have to run something like a Focus Sash or a Colbur Berry even. Whatever you have, you can just get up your rocks freely, and at base 79 speed, you are kind of fast, so you can get rocks over those Pokemon that might have taunt, like a Heatran potentially. But yeah, look, I love Necrozma for what it can do in terms of everything it gives, but Stealth Rocks is just one option that it has that is just so impressive of what it can do. So yeah, that's why I like Necrozma here. What are your thoughts on it?
I personally actually really like Necrozma. I've gotten a lot more used to Necrozma in format, just in general, both playing it and also using it. So I can definitely say that it's a lot better than I initially gave it credit for. I still think it's a little overhyped, but it's actually really solid in my opinion. My one issue with Necrozma is it seems like every single game you're trying to fight its massive 4 move slot syndrome, because you usually need its signature move, you usually need Stealth Rocks, you usually need Recovery, and that last move goes to something, whether it's Coverage, Calm Mind, and even if you run, like, let's say Calm Mind plus a second coverage move, you then need to take out one of its other more important moves in my opinion, which is why I really just struggle to fit Necrozma, at the very least, as a Stealth Rocker. It's a very solid mon, and it definitely is really good when it can get Stealth Rocks, but it's almost it's almost impossible to actually fit them on the moveset, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's extremely fair. I mean, it definitely has a ton of great options, and picking the right set every week is always a challenge, especially when you're playing on something like Wi-Fi, where you can really optimize your EV spreads very, very carefully. But anyways, let's talk about another Pokemon with 4 move slot syndrome, but also one with another 4 times weakness, and that is your number 4, or your number 2. I don't know how we're doing this.
I actually have mine 5 to 1 as well. So my number 4 is Landorus-T. And while you can definitely say Landorus-T is the best mon in format, of course, I personally think it's the best mon in format, it's not necessarily the best stealth rocker in format. Main reason being is, 1, it has 4 times weakness to ice, which is a fairly common coverage move. It's something that I don't necessarily feel comfortable just letting this thing take hits, because even from a non-stab hidden power, it's still taking a fair amount from a hidden power ice. Pretty much the essential Landorus-T counter is just hidden power ice, or even like an ice beam.
100%.
Also because of the fact that base 91 speed, while it's a really nice speed tier, especially for a mon with as good offenses as it has, it still is in the slower end when you do want to invest bulk. And while, for example, Heatran is like naturally really thick, Landorus-T, if you want it to take any special hits, you definitely do need to invest a decent amount into its bulk for it to take those hits really well. And also, it has 4 moveset syndrome in a sense, because while you can do pretty much anything with a Landorus, it's almost never, in my opinion, best used as a stealth rocker. It's more so used for an offensive role. But it still, of course, does function really great as a stealth rock pivot with things like U-turn, of course, because Intimidate will also force a lot of switches, which gives you free turn for rocks, and then you could U-turn out later on. So it definitely still one of the better rockers in format for sure. But I feel like its potential isn't best used for stealth rocks. What are your thoughts?
I definitely agree with that, because it's just so good offensively. Flying and ground typing is just an amazing stab option, and when you pair it with your double dance options in Rock Polish and Swords Dance, you can even run Calm Mind on it if you want to be that guy who runs a special set. That's really, really strong, but at the same time, you want to run Rocks on it because it's got a good speed tier, it's a good lead because of Intimidate, and there's just so much going for it that sometimes fitting Rocks on it is also difficult, just like it is for Necrozma. But that 4 times ice weakness is also just a big problem.
Yeah, that's really my only complaint with Landorus, I guess. Speaking of ground types, what about your number 4?
Number 4 for me is without a doubt Donphan. Now Donphan is, I think, out of all these Pokemon, if you put them on a tiered draft, this will be the lowest one. I think this is the only one definitely on my list that would be below tier 2. And the reason I have it is because it gets access to Rapid Spin and Stealth Rocks and Sturdy. Sturdy just allows you to basically get the free layer of, well, not free layer of rocks, but free stealth rocks up pretty much whenever you want, unless your opponent has a rocks up or stealth or spikes up, whatever it may be, because Sturdy is just such a great ability for defense and for getting up hazards and for providing you with good utility, whether it's for knockoff or something to hit hard like Earthquake or whatever it may be. Just having Sturdy really allows Donphan to separate itself from the pack, in my opinion, and having Stealth Rocks allows you to just continually Stealth Rock Rapid Spin away the rocks that your opponent puts up. And the way I kind of saw it was, in a 1v1 matchup against another rocker, Donphan would usually win because it could probably get rid of rocks, unlike the opponent's Pokemon. Something like, well, Landorus gets it now, but something like a Heatran, for example, or even a Necrozma, they don't get Rapid Spin or Defog, so you can actually get rid of their rocks while they can't get rid of yours.
Yeah, in terms of Donphan, I actually love Donphan in format. It's one of my favorite mons to draft. It's almost like an essential pick for me between that or Nidoqueen in terms of a lower tier ground type. But my one issue with Donphan in terms of rocks is I feel like Donphan, it almost never lives as long as you would like it to. And while, of course, Sturdy is a phenomenal ability, you do need to keep the rocks off your side of the field. So in terms of the, at least rocks Rapid Spin aspect, if you're bringing in Donphan to clear hazards, its Sturdy is going to get broken anyway, so then you'll need to run like a Leftovers or a Berry to get back up. And then by that point, if you're trying to reset rocks because your opponent cleared them away with either Bear Spin or Defog, then now you are taking damage and risking that you might faint before. Because Donphan, well, has at least really solid physical bulk, especially it's a little bit lackluster.
Yeah.
And not only that, but a lot of its weaknesses are also special types anyway, such as water, grass, ice. So it almost never really takes a super effective hit without a berry that you really need it to, without the Sturdy, of course. So I guess it's definitely really solid for its tier, but I feel like there's just a few mons in format that are definitely better stealth rockers than it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think to me it finds its way at my number 4 slot, but I definitely think there are better ones, and that's why we have this list. So let's go to your number 3, and I'll let you take the reins again.
Okay, so my number 3, of course, it's yet another mon with a 4 times weakness. It's my boy T-Tar. Now, T-Tar has a lot that it can offer to a team, which is why I have it over Landorus. Because while Landorus, of course, it does offer a little bit to teams such as Intimidate and Pivot, Tyranitar is a true team player. If your team, let's say, is running a drill, not only does this thing take rocks pressure off a drill, but of course it's a sand setter for drill. So it's already a team player as it is. T-Tar with the rock dark typing is able to get stab pursuit and trap a lot of things that maybe your bulky psychics wouldn't like to deal with, because of course bulky psychic versus bulky psychic, you're relying on toxic. Also clears a lot of bulky psychics for fighting types as well. So it just offers a lot of team support through things such as pursuit. Also has a lot of setup options of its own, so it can also hit hard offensively. And with T-Tar, unlike Landorus-Therian, where it's hard to fit rocks onto it, T-Tar almost always can successfully run rocks while still running other really surprising sets offensively, or even defensively for that matter, that can throw off your opponent. And every game, I feel like it's such an underrated mon, because T-Tar, with its insane stat distribution, even the 61 speed, once you get the +1 with the Dragon Dance, or you can even set up a Rock Polish as well, you're hitting a pretty solid speed tier that's outspeeding at least a lot of slower Scarfers, or even just mons that aren't Scarf. Base 110, you're getting outsped by the T-Tar. So it can apply a lot of pressure, and you really only usually need like 2 or 3 offensive moves. So you can either run, of course, a setup, or just stealth rocks in general. So it's a mon that I really like. It's really fat, especially the sand giving it a nice speed F boost. So unlike mons such as Donphan that would need AV to take speed F hits, this thing just comes in and it essentially sets an assault vest. So what are your thoughts, I guess, on T-Tar?
I mean, look, I agree with everything you said. I think regular T-Tar is a monster. I think having that boost from sand is great. I definitely think the fighting weakness holds it back a lot, because I mean, some of the fight type moves are extremely powerful, so sometimes you're not even gonna live that through your berry. Like if you're taking a choice banded Lucario's close combat through a Chopple Berry, I don't think you're living that hit. That's just, it's not happening. T-Tar has all that bulk, but the 4 times weakness to me holds it back because of the power of fighting moves. But in terms of getting up rocks, there are very few Pokemon that are as good as this one here, just because of the overall bulk that it has, and of course the fact that you can break sturdies or break sashes with the sand, and I like that that aspect that it brings with the sand. But yeah, T-Tar to me is awesome. So we'll move on though to the next one, and that is my number 3, as the back door opens. So number 3 that I have is Mew, and Mew is, to me, the best. To me, it's the best Pokemon in the format, because it can do literally everything. And to me, there's nothing it can't do. And part of that is because it has access to all the TMs in the game, all the HMs, and it gets a ton of setup everywhere. It gets priority. And the best part about it though is its stat distribution is perfect, pretty much. 100 all around, maybe average to some people, but to me that's above average. It exceeds expectations, whatever it may be. And it can just make sure you get up rocks, live hits, roost back off the damage, and defog away your opponent's rocks, whatever it may be. You can constantly come in, set up rocks, and be a defensive problem for your opponents. Again, I love Psychic type Pokemon for their defensive abilities. That's why I had Necrozma on my list, and Mew is here pretty much doing the same thing. So yeah, what do you think about it?
So Mew, if you would have only made my list if this was a top 6 or higher, to be honest, it's a really solid mon, but it essentially has the same problem that I have with Necrozma, only of course many more moves to take advantage of. So you're almost never, unless if you're just importing Smogon sets, you're almost never running the same set twice in a row with Mew, because it has the most diverse move pool and most diverse stat distribution of anything besides like Arceus in the entire game. You are literally not going to find a possible mon in pretty much any draft league that is more diverse than Mew is right here. And my issue is if you need to depend on this thing as one of your best stealth rockers, your team, while Mew is obviously a good stealth rocker, if your team needs to depend on this mon for rocks every week, you're almost hurting Mew itself, I feel like, because of how diverse its moveset is. And while it is good at setting stealth rocks, it's not necessarily good at being a stealth rocker, if that makes any sense, because you shouldn't need to depend on this mon to be your team's stealth rocker. It's not like, for example, Heatran or Lando or T-Tar, for example, that you can depend on them as a reliable stealth rocker. You can be a stealth rocker, but it shouldn't be your stealth rocker, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the way I see it though, and the issue with Mew that everyone ends up having is, because Mew fills so many roles, you feel like you should like go ahead and draft other things. And because of that, it makes it so that you have to, usually you devote resources to doing that, and it ends up taking away from you drafting better rockers, because there are Pokemon that can, while they aren't as diverse as Mew, they are really good at getting up rocks, and they may not be on our top 10 list, our top 6 list, whatever this is. It's just, you're still able to get up rocks with those Pokemon, and it lets Mew do other things, and that's really important. So yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
So now for our number 2 and number 1, we actually have the same Mons. My number 2 pick and Matt's number 2 pick would be Skarmory.
For sure.
Now, I know I mentioned I like a lot more offensive Stealth Rockers, so this is sort of the one exception to the rule. My number 1 is kind of an exception, but I'll get into why it isn't when we get to it. So Skarmory here is not only a really solid Stealth Rocker, but it's a really solid Mon in general. It's a little on the bottom end for tier 1s, I'll give it that, but with the Sturdy, it's phenomenal Steel Flying typing, and personally, I love Steel types that are not worrying about getting hit by Earthquake, so Skarmory, of course, is one of my favorite Steel types. It has, of course, Roost, and it's slow enough to the point where you can Roost up, and not only get your HP back into Sturdy range, but you're also not worrying about taking most Mon's Earthquakes, which is a side effect of Roost, of course, that you do lose your Flying typing that turn. So, overall, though, Skarmory just has a lot of nice defensive presence, and also it's Sturdy. Unlike Donphan, you're actually going to be able to recover up without just relying on leftovers. So you're able to, of course, get your HP back up to reuse your Sturdy again and again to set rocks. It has hazard removal of its own, being Defog, and of course, unlike Donphan, you don't need to worry about as many hazards because you're only worrying about rocks with Skarmory, whereas Donphan will be worrying about spikes and rocks.
Yeah.
So you're able to clear hazards more efficiently while taking less damage from stealth rocks and spikes and all that. Skarmory's defensive typing is so much better as well. I believe its only weaknesses are electric and fire, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it just has a lot that I guess it can offer to team support. Gets, as I said, it also gets spikes as well. It has Taunt, I believe, as well, and Whirlwind, so it can phase out Mons and just let them take hazard damage. So overall, I just like Skarmory for a lot of different reasons. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, Skarmory, just in terms of supporting everything on your team, it definitely does that, and I have it in the WPA, and a lot of the times, well, first of all, I never found myself drafting this Pokemon, and I still haven't drafted it. I just got lucky that it was on my team, and that's how I'm using it. But I feel like I'm going through a lot of 4 move slot syndrome with it, but part of that is because I want to run Stealth Rock, I want to run Roost, I want to run Defog, I want to run a Flying move or a Steel move. I want to make sure I could have Spikes one week, or Taunt, or Whirlwind, and there's just so much that it just... If Skarmory had a few more moves, a few more move slots, it would just do so good because it could literally wall everything. And its stats are phenomenal. Like, it's got a higher special defense than Donphan, but it's also got recovery. It's got higher defense than Donphan, but again, it's got recovery. It's got higher speed than Donphan, so it can actually get up rocks before Donphan, and just, I love what Skarmory can do for a team. The big weakness that I have for it is that Brave Bird has recoil, so I found myself running Drill Peck a lot, and Drill Peck obviously isn't as powerful, so it becomes a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I will say that Skarmory definitely does have 4 move slot syndrome, which is the only mon on my list that I feel like has really bad 4 move slot syndrome. Like, Landorus obviously kind of has it, but it's not makes
bad,
anything work. Whereas Skarmory, you're losing out on certain things by not running certain moves, but at the very least, unlike mons such as Mew, Donphan, Necrozma, Skarmory can almost always fit rocks onto those movesets, whereas those mons, at the very least at times, definitely struggle to run rocks. Skarmory will almost always be able to guarantee, I can run rocks this week, which is, I know you mentioned earlier, it's really good at that at least.
It's pretty much guaranteed stealth rocks, and I love that. Now, before we get to our number 1 slot, I just want to say that you guys should definitely go and subscribe to Aaron, and definitely subscribe to my channel as well, and follow us both on Twitter, because, I mean, we're both pretty cool guys, I'd say. Aaron's pretty cool, I like him a lot. He's cool.
Aw, thanks, Matt. I appreciate you too.
Thanks. So yeah, you guys should definitely do that. But now it is time, the number 1 slot. This used to be one of the Pokemon I always draft. I think I went my first 4 leagues drafting this Pokemon, and I do not regret it at all. That is Clefable. Now, do you want to tackle Clefable first, or do you want me to do it?
I'll let you start with Clefable.
Okay, so first thing I have to say about Clefable is its abilities. Magic Guard, Unaware. Insane. Just, those are 2 amazing abilities. It can pretty much stop Stall, or it can stop Hyper Offense, and I love that about Clefable. And because of that, you're always able to get up your Stealth Rocks. It also has reliable recovery while using both abilities. Sometimes you're going to have to use Wish, other times you'll have to use Soft Boil or Moonlight, but at the end of the day, it's still recovery and it works. And to top it off, it gets a lot of good options just in terms of its physical abilities. You get Moonblast, you get your Fire coverage, you have your Electric coverage, you have obviously Ice coverage too, which is kind of useless if you're attacking dragons, but useful for those grass types and those ground types you might be facing off against. But overall, Clefable is just so fat, and its stats don't look impressive at all, but for some reason this Pokemon refuses to die. And again, its typing is incredible, and its abilities are incredible, and I can't say enough good things about Clefable, but this video is already kind of long, so I'll let Aaron go now.
Yep. All right. So, of course, if you followed me, you know, in my my D League efforts, you do know that I have recently, as of I think week 3, picked up a Clefable, and it was probably one of the greatest decisions I could have made for my draft. Because while I have not won since I picked it up, it still is a lot that I can offer to a draft. It makes team building really easy because it has a lot of options, and not only that, but you're never struggling with this mon in terms of trying to fill a moveset. You can afford to run rocks a lot of the time, not always, but you can definitely afford to run rocks a lot of the time in Clefable. It has 2 phenomenal abilities where no matter what, your team is always benefiting from one of these abilities, whether it's Magic Guard to the point where you're not worrying about getting Toxic Stall that week because you will no matter what have an answer to Toxic Stalling, or Unaware to the point where you're not worrying about setup months such as Manaphy and Xurkitree trying to tail glow up on you and nuke your draft. This thing is just going to live those hits. And you know what it means if it's going to live those hits or live the toxic stalling your opponent's going to do? It's going to get up the stealth rocks. It's going to be able to recover and sit there, and while you try and defog them away, it's just going to reset stealth rocks. And then it'll throw in a paralyze with Thunder Wave eventually, and then you're just going to be slower and it's going to kill you off. And then when you clear the rocks again as you're dying and you get 1 move left, it's going to set them back up. Because Clefable just does not die. For a mon that has all under base 100 stats, it just does not die. And not only that, but it's not even passive either for such a bulky mon. It has base 95 special attack. You throw a calm mindset, this thing is going to be taking lives. And not only that, you can't even set up against it because it will not matter because of Unaware, and it just does not die.
Look, Clefable is by far the best rocker to me. It's not even close.
Definitely.
And,
no contest.
Yeah, and look, the fact that it's the only fairy type that we have on this list is great, and everyone knows fairy is probably, if not the best type, one of the top 2 or 3. And overall, just what it can do in terms of stopping Pokemon and setting up on those same Pokemon it stopped, and then setting up a Pokemon, not even that it stops, but that just don't appreciate it being there. It causes so many matchup nightmares, and Clefable is, to me and to Aaron, the best stealth rocker in the Draft League format. So guys, that's our list. Let us know what you thought about it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed it, you should definitely hit the like button. And of course, like I said before many times, subscribe to Aaron, subscribe to myself, follow us both on Twitter. And if you want to interact more with me, you can definitely join my Discord server, which is the Ocean, linked in the description below of all my videos. Aaron, do you have a server of your own?
Actually, I do. I have the Heatran server. I can give that to you as well. The link down below with my Twitter and my YouTube.
Go ahead, we'll do that. And yeah guys, if you have any questions about our list, you can post them in the comment section and I will do my best to answer them. If Aaron's around, he'll answer them. But yeah guys, again, subscribe to Aaron, subscribe to me, and have a good day. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.